This Brewers Lectures is supported by Muntons. Muntons is the leading global player in the supply of malts, malt extracts, flours and flakes, and many other malted ingredients relevant to the food and drinks and homebrew industries. Muntons Malts is currently selling over 210,000 tonnes of malt annually to the world's brewing, distilling and food industries. All Muntons barley is fully traceable to the farm of origin. A large proportion of the barley is sourced direct from the farm, often grown on a buyback contract where Muntons have supplied the seed. This level of traceability is unique within the industry. Malton's merchant contracts for malting barley stipulate that growers must be members of an approved farm assurance scheme. Muntons offer a wide range of brewing grains to make the sourcing of your grist needs as simple as possible. All grains are made to the highest standards from premium grade, locally sourced raw materials.
Hi there folks, my name is Matthew Curtis and I'm a freelance writer and photographer, as Tim said. I publish a website which is also quite photography driven as well as written word called Total Ales, and I work for a similar website based out of Chicago in the US called Good Beer Hunting. I also work for a few UK magazines, including Ferment and various others, and I've recently also had some photographs published in a couple of books, one Johnny's great new book that's just come out, and Josh Bernstein's Complete IPA. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm here to talk to you today about why I feel breweries need to invest in great photography. There are now almost 1,800 breweries in the UK, and while many of these might be your friends and peers, they are also your competitors. That's without considering the wealth of breweries from around the world that are now exporting into what I see as a very healthy UK beer market. The most successful of these breweries are able to marry a quality product with an appealing brand. But how do you best convey that product and brand to consumers in a way that is both honest and transparent? Well, they say a picture tells 1,000 words, and that's why it's time to invest in photography. For me, it was a gateway to becoming a professional beer writer, and that taught me the inherent value of photography. By picking up a camera and looking at the beer industry through a lens, it helped give me a lot more perspective, whether that was stood opposite a brewer while they were mashing in, or cleaning the brewery at the end of a long shift, or whether it was when I was deep in an edit and I started to notice subtle details happening in brewing that I just didn't see before. In the modern beer market, that's the level of detail your customers want to see. And I realised this when I saw a single photo. That chap standing there is Sean Hill of Hill Farmstead Brewery, standing outside his brewery. This photo was taken by Michael Kaiser, who I work for at Good Beer Hunting, and it's part of a long-form article he did on Hill Farmstead. And there's a lot going on in this photo that makes me ask questions. I mean, you can see he's tired, he's soaking wet, he's been at the end of a long brew day, but I see the door with the steel behind it, and I'm asking, what's he building in there? And with photography, you can make your customers ask those questions and get interested. And if they're asking questions about your brewery, then they're going to be interested in trying and buying your product. And so when I saw this photo from Michael, it sent me on the photographic journey I'm on now. And I started trying to emulate that in my own style. This is a photo I took of a guy called Troy Casey. This summer, he has a brewery in Glenwood Springs, Colorado called Casey Brewing and Blending. And I was he'd just been bottling all day, hand bottling 750ml corked and cage bottles. He was enjoying a beer at the end of a shift. You can see the sun from its angle of his shadow. It's late in the day. And you've got the hint of barrels behind him, just making you ask questions like, you know, what is he doing in there? I want to find out about it. This is a photo I took, I'm particularly pleased with, when I was visiting the Left Hand Brewery, also in Colorado earlier this year. This is one of their cellar managers, and as you can see, he's in the cellar. And it's a great shot with the hose pipes and the stainless steel, and he's busy. But what's he actually doing? Well, if you look carefully down at the brush he's holding, he's cleaning a pump. It's hardly romantic, but it's interesting. It's the composition and the fact that he's doing something that's actually relevant to his job. It just makes you start asking these questions. And through using a camera, having someone in the brewery to capture that, you can tell that story to your customer and keep them interested. And here's another one I took in Boundary Brewing in Belfast, Northern Ireland, earlier this year. You've got Matthew Dick in the centre of the shot, who's the founder of Boundary, with Declan from Yellow Belly digging out the mash tun, having a bit of a laugh. But just in the corner, right in the background, you see Mal from Boundary just relaxing while they dig out the mash tun. And it's like little details like that make me smile and make me realise there's these little quirks in brewing that you can tell your customers and get them engaging with your brand. So what have I learned from photography? Well, it's cliched, but a picture tells 1,000 words. They really do. People are bored with cliched photography, and I'm talking about classic brewing shots, the brewmaster trickling grain through his fingers or looking at beer through the light. People are also bored with heavily posed, over-stylized photography. There is a time and a place for it, but people don't want to see that. They want to see the boring stuff. They want to see what you actually do for a living. They are curious. They want to see behind the scenes. And with a camera, you can show them that. People want to see people. I see shots of cans of beer. I see shots of lovely stainless steel of beers. But they want to see what you're doing. They are interested. And if you do that, you can create a level of engagement that will just reach into their minds and hearts, and they want to buy your beer. So I'm going to use an example of Allagash Brewing in Portland, Maine, because I think they use photography to an incredibly powerful effect. There are a lot of breweries using great photography, but for me, there really aren't enough. So this is brewmaster Jason Perkins pulling a nail from a barrel. This is a wonderful shot. These aren't taken by me. This is by a guy Allagash have hired to follow people around the brewery and take photographs. And in this photo, he's framed Jason perfectly and used a lovely depth of field to blur the foreground and the background. And so you can focus on what he's doing, but then you're asking, like, what's in the glass? What's in the barrel? This is straight from their Twitter, which had 140 characters of here's Jason sampling some beer. But it just gets you thinking, it gets you asking questions. But you can step outside of people, and here we have just a fermenting barrel, the miracle of fermentation, if you will. And it's just making me think, what's in that barrel? You know, it's a beautifully framed photo of fermentation, and it just gets you excited about something that you might be able to taste in the future. This is a particular favourite of mine. This is nothing to do with brewing. This is a bluegrass band playing in their tap room. But it makes me want to go to their tap room and see the bluegrass band and you know, drink some beer while I'm there. It's telling a story of stuff that is happening that you might not expect in a really great way. Like, look at these guys. They look great. Don't you want to go and listen to them and sink a few beers at the Allagash tap room? After looking at this photo, I know I do. And this is one of my favourites. So this photo really gives me a sense of place. So you can see on the left side of the photo, you've got the poured concrete and stainless steel of the fermentation tanks. On the right, you've got the trees and the snow, giving you the indication that you're in New England and it's winter. And then in the centre, your eyes are drawn to this orange glow and steam rising out of it. And what's in that door is their cool ship, which has just been filled with freshly cooling wort, and that is what they were trying to convey. But there's no beer in this photo, it's just a story, a sense of place, and it's a great photo it's almost inviting you in with that warming glow, and it makes me sort of excited for what might be happening in there. Another great way of how you can tell your brewery story. And this last one, there is room for cliche, but if you're going to take cliched bottle shots, they have to be this good. You know, think about like making that beer look appealing. I want to reach into this photo and pick that up. It's just the tap's open, drank straight from the bottle, no fancy glassware, just like, here's a nice beer. In the evening, I'm going to drink it. So what can we learn from Allagash? Well, you can find a balance in your photographic output between product and people. Make sure you give time for both. Look for the story beyond just making and selling beer. I all know that's what you do, but you can make that a lot more exciting for your customers. So tell people that story of what's happening. No matter how boring or routine you think it is, you need to be telling your customers through photographs. And this one I put, buy your marketing team or comms manager a camera, and some of you might go, well, I am the marketing team. So, well, it's time to invest in a camera, because that is something you can have by your side all the time to capture something that might happen. And you can then convey that to all the people who hopefully follow you online. And importantly, with a camera, you need time to learn how to use it, take photos. And if you have a social media person or a marketing team, make sure you give them the time to learn how to use the tool you have given them. Okay, so you've taken some photos, you've invested in the camera. How do I share them with people? Well, it seems obvious, but use Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You all have Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, and Facebook, right? Twitter is particularly excellent at the moment because an image no longer uses the 140-character word count. It's like a freebie. You get a 1,000-word freebie on every tweet now, and you can tag up to 10 people in that photo without using Twitter characters. It's an incredibly valuable way of using social media. Instagram. Don't use your Instagram to just bung a load of stuff on. Make it beautiful. Make it engaging. Curate a list of really fantastic photography that has a great schedule and people keep coming back to see. And Facebook is another great way of just getting more engagement with your posts. Every Facebook post with a photo will get a lot more clicks than if you just put text up. So you should be using photography all the time. And if you're using good photography, that level of engagement is only going to increase. But don't post randomly. You need a social media schedule. Work out what times work best for you. It's not going to be the same for everyone, and it requires a lot of time and experimentation. But it's a chance to really engage with your audience and find the time when they are interested in engaging with you. You've all got websites. So illustrate that website with great photography. Give them something interesting to look at while they're visiting you. If they want more than just information, you have a chance to show them something when they're visiting your website. And great photography is a way of doing that. And of course, you've all got blogs, right? I hope so, because a blog is a fantastic way to engage with customers. And images, a header image is a great way of just introducing a blog post. But if you're writing something long, you can use photography to break up that text and make it less heavy and make people read to the end. Photography is a very powerful tool in that respect. And this is a personal bugbear of mine. Link your Instagram handle to your Twitter, because if someone else is taking nice photos in your brewery and you want a chance to share that and they Instagram it and put it on Twitter, you might miss that. So please make sure you're linking those and to your Facebook account. Keep them integrated. It also helps keep engagement with your customers. And don't just say anything. Find something worth saying. Sit and think about the message that you want to convey. A few moments of thinking, well, this is happening. I want to show someone. Do it. Think about what you're saying. This is an example, this is a photo from Paul Jones here of Cloudwater that he used on a blog post the other day, and it's very simple. He's used a nice depth of field to bring the glasses of beer into focus, and it's their V9 and V10 double IPAs. And all he wanted to show was that 9 and 10, their appearance was very different, and convey that in a blog post. But for me, that almost says everything you need to say, because it's just a nicely composed, easy to digest photograph that adds so much value to what he's trying to say to his customers. And that is, 5-10 minutes of your time to take a nice photo to demonstrate something to your customers. So, if you want to buy a camera, then how do you buy? It's an absolute minefield out there when you're shopping for a camera. Well, the best camera you will ever buy is the one you have in your hand. So you should buy one that you're actually going to carry around with you. And think about your budget relatively. Would you invest £100,000 on a new bottling line to get those dissolved oxygen levels down? Yes? Then what's £1,000 on a decent camera and lens? In terms of relativity, that's incredible value in terms of what photography can do in spreading your message. And the brand of the camera is not as important as the usability. Canon and Nikon have got a real grip on the market, and they make great cameras, but there's so many brands such as Sony, Fuji, Panasonic, Olympus. Get out there, get into a camera shop and try cameras. And size matters. Bigger isn't always better. Now, DSLR cameras are fantastic and they will take amazing images, but the technology of cameras has moved on dramatically. You can get what they call compact system cameras, or CSCs, commonly referred to as mirrorless cameras, that don't have the mirrors that a DSLR has. And you can have a DSLR quality camera in your pocket that takes incredible images, that takes up vastly less size. So you can literally have it on your desk, see something happening in the brew house, walk out, snap it, edit it online. So think about that. If you're not very technical and you don't want to get into changing lenses, you can get point and shoot cameras that have incredible lenses just built in. And the clue's in the name. They're point and shoot. So there's so much out there if you want to invest in a camera. But the most important thing you can invest in if you really want to take photography seriously is a decent lens. The kit lenses that cameras come with are good, but upgrading that will dramatically improve the results that you get. Okay, so here are some of my photography top tips. Light. Light is your best friend, always. Great natural daylight is the best thing you can ever use to take great photography. And for me, a flash is a way of really making washed out, not nice photography. But different people like different techniques to get great images. But the great thing about a camera as opposed to a camera phone is that if you're shooting in low light, so I shoot on this camera with a big lens, if I'm in a pub at night, I can still get great images without a flash. So that's certainly in the beer industry, having something that can shoot in low light is a boon. It's amazing. So think about what's in the frame when you're taking photographs. My favourite way to do this is to frame a shot, and then if I'm in a brewery doing an article, is to take a step back and see what's in that frame, see if I can find anything. Think about what you're trying to take a photo of. And please avoid quirky angles. I see a lot of photos where people try and take them at diagonals or funny angles. The human eye likes to see a straight horizon, and if you're taking photos with everything on a level, it's a lot easier for the eye to absorb, and it finds it a lot nicer to look at. So think about the horizon and keep that straight when you're framing a shot. And this for me was the most important thing, letting go of the zoom. So I shoot on what they call a prime lens or a fixed lens, which doesn't let me zoom in and out of the subject. And what this means is that when something's happening, I have to move. And by moving around your subject, you end up taking much better shots than if you just stand there and zoom in and out of it. And experiment with something called aperture to create that lovely depth of field. So aperture is the size, I'm trying to explain it in a not too technical way, that lets the light in. So that closes when you take a shot. And the wider that is, the bigger the depth of field you're going to get. And with a good lens, you'll have a number that says F and then 2 or 4. The lower that number, the wider the aperture is, and the greater the depth of field is. And by using aperture, you can create what they call bokeh. It's a term I don't really like, but blurriness. And it brings the subject of what you're trying to take a photo of into focus. And this will help you create photos that are a lot nicer to look at. And that's going to create more engagement for you. And study the work of great photographers. Look at photographs and then try and emulate them, as I did with that shot by Michael Kaiser. 3 of my favourite classic photographers are Henri Cartier-Bresson, the Parisian street photographer who just was a fantastic reportage photographer. Ansel Adams, the American landscape photographer, not just for his photos, but for the way he edits photos. And worked in the darkroom, and Photoshop is the modern darkroom, so it's fantastic to study how he drew focus into these vast images. And one more, his photos are quite heavy going, the war photographer Don McCullin, but in terms of composition and framing under pressure, and believe me, trying to stay out the way of a brewer and take good photos is often trying to remain visible. It's not war photography, but it's a challenge, a fun one at that. But the biggest advice I can give you is to edit, edit, edit. I probably spend 50% of my time on Photoshop trying to bring out the contrast and depth and really pull the focus of images to make them the best I can. And it's that process of editing, same with writing, spending time reviewing your work and then trying to get the best out of it. It's so key. So the question I get asked when I tell people about photography is the camera on my phone good enough? Well, yes and no. The problem is using a camera phone can lead to complacency, and you don't think about the images, and you end up just putting anything online without any real thought behind it. You also have a problem with greasy lenses. Your phone is in your pocket all the time. It's getting finger grease on it. It's getting pocket fluff. In a brewery, you're going to get sort of grains of malt and dust all over it. So if you are going to use a camera phone, please clean the lens. Camera phones have a very small sensor, so anything at low light will be very grainy and one-dimensional, or if you're using flash, very washed out. And they're just not very nice photos to look at. And edit. There are great free apps available online. So Snapseed is my particular favorite. It's a fantastic little pocket phone editing app. I can actually beam a photo from my camera via Wi-Fi to my phone, edit it, and put it on Instagram in the process that takes around 3 or 4 minutes. It's incredibly valuable, but by editing that, I can make sure I'm putting an image online that I'm a lot more happy with than something that's straight out of the camera. ViscoCam is another great option. It's very arty. So using a camera phone breeds complacency. That's my last message, and that's why I feel investing in a camera is worthwhile. And I've got a few examples of that sort of complacency, and I'm sorry to the breweries that I hope none of them are in this room, or if they are, we can go outside and have a brawl afterwards. Sorry, Beavertown. Lovely, you're having a tap room open day and there's a can of your beer, but what about your tap room does that say to me? You've got Gamma Ray? Well, that's great, I would hope so. Sorry, Camden Town, also holding a can of beer up to the camera. Yes, it looks lovely, but what is that telling me about your brand? It tells me you've got a can of beer in your hand. Great. Sorry, Signature Brew, doing exactly the same thing, and Marble, and Verdant, and I found 30 photos in 20 minutes when I was looking at this the other night. It's very easy to be complacent, and having a camera makes you think about what you're doing, and it's just taking those few extra minutes to think about the images you're sharing with your customers, and that will help them engage with your brand, help you sell more beer. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful.